Hello and welcome to my channel In Search of Wonder. My name is Anne and this is my weekly reading wrap-up. This week has been a very busy week, and so it is now Saturday night and at 9 something at night. So I need to get this uploaded and edited and posted on YouTube in the next hour. So this is going to be short and hopefully sweet. I just want to update on my reading this past week, which was not a lot because this was the first week of December, which is always a crazy busy week for us. It was the start of basketball season, practices every night. My kids are on 2 different teams. And so, yeah. And then the regular schedule of things, plus birthday parties, plus special events at school. We had our annual Christmas lessons and carols concert on Thursday night, which was wonderful and went very well, but at the same time, made for a busy week. So haven't got a great deal of reading done, but I have finished 2 things. So first of all, last Saturday night, I finished reading David Brainerd's personal testimony. And initially when I was reading this book, everything in here is taken from his diaries. And I think I got the sense that there were personal diaries that were private, that were only published posthumously, I guess. And then there were other diaries or journals that were more like public journals that he wrote for the benefit of people who supported his mission or whatever, I guess. I'm not 100% certain about that, but that's what it seemed like. So it was a mix of those 2 journals. And in the beginning, I was a little bit wondering, is this guy even really a believer? Because the way he described his spiritual life and his prayer life and everything, there was so much turmoil. There was zero peace. There was a lot of self-righteousness in the sense of trying to earn his righteousness and everything. And there was very little resting in the grace of God and salvation through Jesus Christ by faith. And so I was really struggling with the first part of it. But then as it went on, there seemed to be a change in him, although it wasn't like, in this book, I didn't come across any like particular moment where like the light dawned and he understood clearly the gospel and all that kind of stuff. So I don't really know. And that's one of the flaws of this particular book, which is a short little book. It's just excerpts from his diaries. You can read his actual diaries and journals in other compilations that are much more thorough. And I feel like you would get a much fuller picture of his spiritual life and his spiritual journey and his growth and what he learned and his ministry that followed all this. So I would like to read it someday because he had a short life. He died when he was 29 years old, but a very interesting life and a very productive life in terms of ministry. He ministered to the Native Americans in the colonies of New Jersey and Pennsylvania and Delaware, and was in 1742 is when it begins, and it ends in 1745, or does it begin sooner than that? 1740 something. Yeah, 1742. I thought he died, was it 49? Whatever, it doesn't matter. So he ministered to the Native American tribes in those colonies in the mid-18th century, and initially made no headway in his ministry. None of the Native Americans converted to Christianity. In fact, they mocked him and they ignored him and that kind of thing. That was basically the response he got. It was mostly, I think, I got the sense it was mostly a cold and apathetic response, like, we don't need you, we don't want you kind of thing. But he was very burdened for their souls and for their salvation, and so he persevered. And when, one tribe rejected him, he would, go to another tribe, and he expended all of his health in this ministry. He because of being exposed to the elements and traveling long hours on horseback and on foot and all kinds of weather and stuff. He really became very weak physically. And in the end, I think that's what led eventually to his death. But he gave it all for this ministry. And the Lord rewarded his labor and his prayers. His prayer life was very rich and deep. And he was always begging God to do a mighty work among the Native Americans. And so there was a great revival among them. And a whole tribe converted to Christianity. And it was amazing to see how God worked in them. They gave up of their own accord. He wasn't even preaching about these things. He was just preaching about the grace of God and the gift of God and salvation and that kind of thing. And he wasn't really even preaching to specific issues or sins even. And of their own accord, after they converted to Christianity, they began giving up drunkenness, and they gave up all forms of their idol worship, and they were getting rid of all of their various implements and tools that they used in idol worship. And they gave up, I don't know, there was a whole bunch of stuff that he was just amazed. Like, he was just watching God work in them, and they were like confessing sins to one another, and they were saying, confessing that they had lied about XYZ, or they had stolen XYZ to one another, and all of these things. And it was just amazing he just was basically stepping back and watching and being like, wow, look what God is doing here among these people. So it was very interesting. I enjoyed it, but it was missing a lot of information, and there were pertinent details and things that I was just kind of guessing at from the context and didn't really understand fully what was going on in the course of the story. I think you really need to know the whole story before you read that. That's just kind of like the highlights. So I do think I would like to read his whole story at some point. But then the other book that I read was Across the Ages by Gabrielle Meyer, and I read it on my Kindles through Hoopla at the library. So I don't have a picture to show you, or a book to show you, but it was very good. It was not my favorite of the series. I think the first and the third so far have been my favorites. I liked the story in the second. I didn't like some of the themes in it, but I enjoyed the actual story. This one, I didn't have any issue with themes or anything. I enjoyed all of the characters. I liked the settings of the families. I just was not as engaged in the story as I was in the previous three. And part of that was because of the busyness of my schedule. I was only able to read in small chunks of time. And so I think I didn't ever quite fully get immersed into the story, and it didn't really get a chance to kind of hook me. And so it wasn't like, I couldn't wait to get back to the book and read some more. I never really hit that point with it, but I did enjoy reading it when I was reading it. And I enjoyed the primary relationship story that was told with the main character. Oh my goodness, I'm so tired. I can't even remember her name. And I just read it. I just finished it like yesterday. And his name was Marcus, but really, yeah, anyway, yeah, I don't want to spoil anything, but anyway, I enjoyed that. That was very well done. And it was interesting, the historical elements that Gabrielle Meyer put into this story, in both timelines. She was drawing from actual historical events and stories and the like, and it was very interesting. I enjoyed that aspect of it very much. Very well researched and that sort of thing. But it's just not as engaging, I guess, as some of the others. So not my favorite, but it was still very good. So there's that. I am currently reading Christmas at Sugar Plum Manor by Roseanna M. White, also borrowed from the library, and really enjoying that one in the last 25 to 30% of it. So I'm finishing that one up probably very soon here, tonight or tomorrow night. Really enjoying that one. It's very good. I'll tell you more about it in my next weekly reading wrap up. And then I am also reading A Vintage Christmas, which is a collection of stories and poems by classic authors. So far, I've read a couple stories by Lucy Maud Montgomery and, Louisa May Alcott. And I'm currently reading one by Lucy Maud Montgomery. And the first one by Louisa May Alcott was kind of a riff off of A Christmas Carol by Charles Dickens, who obviously Louisa May Alcott was a very big fan of. And so she was clearly riffing off of it, and like she tells you so in the text of the story. There's a girl in there who reads A Christmas Carol, and so it's definitely built off of that. But it's a children's story for children. A child is the main character, and so it has a very like moralistic overtone to it. It's very much a fable in style. So probably not my favorite ever, but it was a fun read, and to see how she riffed off of A Christmas Carol. And then the second one was a lot more interesting. It was a bit of a, you know, the old folktale, Town Mouse and Country Mouse, where the town mouse comes to visit the country mouse. Well, this girl has escaped the big city, not escaped it, but, you know, she's left it for a vacation with her distant relatives in the country, and she's just really enjoying the relaxed pace of life. And she decides to invite her friends from the city who live kind of like high flyer lives to come and have like a few days in the country and experience a Christmas in the country. And so she prepares all of these things so that they get the real experience of living in the country for Christmas. And it was a really fun story, and perhaps a little bit predictable in the way that everything turns out. But the telling of it was so fun and engaging. It was a short story. It was great. It had all of the Christmas vibes without being cheesy or super sappy or anything like that. Just, you know, funniness and humor and irony, that it was overall very good. I enjoyed that one. And now I'm reading one by Lucy Maud Montgomery that is good as well, but is more of a children's kind of story. So anyway, that is what I am in the middle of at the moment. I'm enjoying all of my Christmas reading, and that's what's going on here. So I will see you next time.